Today I'm going to tell you about the 3 most important things that every artist should know. These 3 things helped my own artwork grow and improve so much. I can't wait to share them with you. So you're going to want to stick around until the end. I have some really exciting news I can't wait to tell you about. So the first of the 3 most important things that every artist should know is about value. You need to really understand value. Study it, learn it, know it backwards, forwards. Get to know value as best you can. It's going to really make a difference in your work. So what is value? It's the relative degree of lightness or darkness of any particular color. So when you're studying value, it's a great chance for you to really hone in on good composition. To do this, I like to break my values into 3 levels. So I'm going to have darks, middles, and light values. So with that, you can prepare what's called a Newton. And basically that's just a black and white with touches of gray image of your composition. And a good Newton will have predominantly one color. Let's say that you want to have 75% black, 15% white, 10% gray in your Newton. And then you can really see how the composition is going to lay out. For instance, a bad Newton would be if you have bits of black and gray and white and they're just sprinkled all over your whole composition. I mean, unless you're going for that specifically for a certain reason, it may work for you. But typically, that's not really a good composition. So understanding value, pulling it into the 3, practicing good composition with your Newton, just move those pieces around until the composition really looks great. Newtons have been used for centuries, since the beginning of, I don't know, all the way back to Rembrandt, maybe further back. So good value structure will really increase the 3D effect of a portrait. It'll make your face look more realistic. You want to think of each feature on the face as an individual shape that has light hitting it from one direction. For example, your nose could be a little triangle on top of a circle or like an oval shape. So think of an egg with a triangle on it. And then when you start to look at the way that the values are filling that out, you'll see that there's a more 3D effect happening than if you just drew the outlines of the triangle and the circle, which would be completely flat. So without value, you're not going to have a 3D effect. Skilled artists not only use value to create a 3D look, they also use value to create emotion in their portraits or paintings. So I want to introduce you to the value scale if you don't already know about it. I particularly like the Flemish value scale. So this is going to take your darkest dark and your lightest light, and it's going from pure white, which is 1, to pure black, which is 9. So I like to group the first 3 values as my lights group. The last 3 values are going to be my darks group, and the middle 3 are going to be my mid values. So when you're discussing values, you want to consider contrast. So contrast is the difference between lights and darks of things. So a good portrait usually, but not always, has a significant degree of different contrast. Imagine a white polar bear sitting on a snowbank. There wouldn't be a lot of contrast between the bear and the snowbank. Now, imagine that a little black penguin waddles up, sits next to the polar bear, and there you go, contrast. And not only do you have contrast now, you also have a focal point. So this is a good effect to use to help guide your viewer's eye to the focal point, the area of the painting where you really want the viewer's attention to be drawn to. So for example, in a portrait, usually you want to draw the viewer into the eyes of the face. So the eyes are a great place to show good contrast because you have the darkness of the iris and the pupil laying on top of the white of the eye, the sclera, and that area is going to already have good built-in contrast to it. So it's going to be easy to draw the viewer's eye to the eyes of your portrait. So if you have several high areas of contrast in your painting, the viewer's eye is not going to know where to stop and look. Therefore, they're going to stop looking at your painting and walk away. We don't want that. So here's a couple of tips, especially for new artists when dealing with values. So when you're looking at your subject, squint your eyes down, and it's going to really let the bigger shapes be obvious to you. So whatever big shapes that you still see, those are the main significant forms that are going to occur in your painting or portrait. The other tip is a lot of beginning artists don't paint the shadows dark enough. So be sure that you're painting the shadows in your portrait dark. They're usually warm, but definitely make sure that they're dark enough. A great way to help a new artist learn to deal better with values is to paint a painting using one color only. And that can be used as your underpainting. You can put your colors right on top of it. I've got one here. So this is an underpainting of a portrait that I'm doing, and then I can lay the colors directly on top. But I didn't have to worry about color while I was working on just value placement. So it really does let you focus and make your life a little bit easier when you're setting up your composition. So value is one of the 3 most important things that every artist should know about. Learn everything you can about it. Use it in every painting you do, and always keep checking in on it while you're painting. Okay, here's the second most important thing that every artist should know about: transitions. So what is a transition? It's the process of changing from one state or condition to another. So in the case of an artist, it's moving away from one color and value towards another or new color and value. For example, on the face, if you're moving from the lighter front plane where the cheek is around and towards the shadow side, if I was going around, you're going to want to step the transition across the cheek and into the shadow plane. And in this case, you often want to go, so there's probably more of a cooler light here on the front, and you want your steps of color in the transition to get a little bit warmer and warmer and warmer still yet as you're moving towards the shadow side. Also, the way that you paint your transitions can make a difference. Most beginners simply try to blend the 2 color areas together. They're not using any specific intermediate colors to join. They're just mishmashing those 2 together. If you do it with a really light hand, it can be okay. It's kind of like a stitching together of the 2 edges, but you should really do it very light. Often when you're just blending 2 colors together where they just mishmash together in the middle, you're going to have a dull area in your painting, typically. So it produces better results for me personally if I step the colors together using slightly different color variations to walk towards that other color. So what I like to do is I have my lighter color, and let's say I'm moving towards my darker color. I like to lay down a brush stroke and then get another little bit of paint that's slightly warmer, slightly darker, lay that brush stroke down, do that again, a little slightly warmer, slightly darker, and just put those brush strokes one on top of the other, just slightly overlapping. So here I'll show you an example. Okay, so we're going to transition from this light color to this shadow color. And to do that, we are going to take different colored steps and just apply them over top, slightly overlapping of the previous color. And it's going to start to get a little warmer with each step we take. A little warmer, a little darker. You can see we're walking our way towards this darker shadow color. That step might have been a little too dark, so let's just lighten it up a tad. And there we go. Take that right into the shadow color that we have established. And there we go. That's our transition from light into shadow. So the number of steps towards that darker color are up to you. It could just be one, it could be a couple, it could be as many as you want. It just depends how far the distance is to move into that next color and value. So this will help keep the colors in your painting fresh and alive. This is especially helpful when painting a portrait. Just be sure to adjust the value of each step as you move along. Once I started paying close attention to my transitions, my portraits improved so much. This is definitely one of the things that every artist should know. Okay, so the third thing you're going to want to know is edges. Okay, I'm going to quote the great Richard Schmidt from his book, Alla Prima 2. If you don't have this book, you really should. I'll leave a link to it in the description. So he says, he's talking about edges. Think of edges as visual poetry oozing from your brush, but especially think of edges as you would the agents of expression in music. So that's pretty cool. Edges are the hard and soft marks that each brushstroke makes. So a good painting will have a variety of edges, but a great painting will depict edges the way that our eyes actually see and focus on details and edges. So usually the human eye sees things with great detail and focus right in the center of the object, and the things start to get fuzzier the further out in our peripheral vision as they go. So when a person's looking at a painting, the focal point is going to be the area that should be having the most detail and focus in your painting. And to do that, it's going to have usually the sharper edges in your painting. And as you move away from that area with these sharper edges, the edges should start to get a little bit fuzzier, a little bit softer the further away we go. And also, if in your painting you're trying to show distance, so the things that are close to the viewer are going to be sharper, and the things that are further into the background are going to be softer. Now, you can break those rules, but if you do so, just realize that you're making your viewer struggle a little bit and have to think, or maybe you want to have your viewer feel a certain way that might trigger an emotion or a feeling in your viewer, and that's fine too. There's no one way to do anything. There's always reasons why you want to do it your way. So the human eye sees things that way, the detail center with things getting lighter. However, using photographs, the camera is just giving you pretty much detail everywhere. With specific lenses, you can get a little bit more depth of field going on. That's a whole different photography lesson that I don't want to get into. But for the most part, if you're using photo references, just be aware of your edges and adjust for it, and it won't look like you're copying a photograph, unless that's what you want to do. As of right now, there's really no camera that's out there that can see the way that our human eye sees. So when you're working with a photograph, be sure to keep the idea of edges in your mind. So what I like to do is put a little sign next to my easel that has these three important elements on it: values, edges, transitions, so that I'm constantly reminded to think about them with each brush stroke. So edges actually have three levels. There's your really sharp hard edge, there's your super fuzzy soft edge, and then there's edges that are kind of in between. And areas in your painting where the edges are just completely undetectable are called lost edges. This happens often as things fade into shadow or move away from the light. Your edges get lost in that shadow area. And then the other side of that coin is the light side of your subject could get lost in the lighter, brighter areas also. So it's really great in composition to have a variety of lost and found edges. So a really cool way to have lost edges in your painting is to place the same value of colors next to each other. So it could be two different colors, but as long as their values are the same, our eyes are going to read that as a lost edge. So there's a lot of things that play on our eyes when we're looking at edges that help us see them in different ways, like atmosphere, the light, the values, the colors, if there's motion, the textures, even the form can really affect the way that we see the edges. For instance, if you're looking at a tricycle moving quickly along, the spokes in the wheel are going to be blurred. They're going to not have any hard edges. So you blur that and it's going to really give motion to your subject. And for instance, if you have a really bright white collar against a black jacket, so that's going to have a super hard edge. So it can often be helpful to squint at your subjects, and the edges which remain most visible, those will be your hard edge areas, and then the ones that seem fuzzier and a little more soft will be your softer or lost edges. To quote the great Richard Schmidt again, he says, he recommends painting an edge as it looks on a subject regardless of anything else you know about it. unless, of course, you have a good reason to do things differently. And Richard says, to me, a good reason for any change in a painting is that I just like it better that way. I think that's a great philosophy. Do it your way, do it well, and it will be good. Or maybe even great. Okay, are you ready for the exciting news? I'm going to let you guys in on a secret. I'm doing a free workshop on 3 ways to start a portrait painting. There's the 3 ways that I've used throughout the time that I've been doing portraits. It's the beginner way, the intermediate way, and then the more advanced way. So wherever you are painting skill-wise, you'll have a spot to start. Practice with that for a while, move to the next one, and then just keep going until you're ready to try the advanced version. So if you're interested and you want to be alerted to when the workshop is going to happen, which will probably be about mid-February, I'm going to leave a link in the description where you can leave your information so I'll be able to notify you of when that free workshop is happening. So that's the cool news. You guys are the first to know. I want to make sure that if anybody's really interested, because there's limited space, and I want to make sure that you guys have that option to get in those slots first. So 3 ways to start a portrait painting workshop, free. I really hope to see you there.